Every time. It's when I go to record. Every time. Hello, it's been a couple days. Art lecture went super well. Learned a ton. It was all about art direction, which I don't really know what I was expecting for a second week. All of your choices add up to the entirety of the piece. Yeah, I guess that's a good way to paraphrase it. I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing too well with my words, but it makes a ton of sense with the assignment that we have to do now. The assignment that we're doing is an art direction study, or kind of a style study as well, but it was fascinating to think of it after learning about like art direction and the ins and outs of that position. So what we're going to be doing is picking an artist that we really admire, a piece of theirs, a pretty specific piece, and analyzing it. We're then going to find a separate reference photo that pretty much has the same subject matter as this one, if that makes sense. So if you're picking a waterfall by a specific person and you're like, I really like how they paint water, you need to find a waterfall picture. You're then going to analyze what they're doing over here with whatever art process works well for you. I think I know what I'm gonna do, and trying some of Ulysses' stuff as well, because he explains his process. So you take that, in this example, the waterfall picture, and you paint your own as it is in the reference, but with the style of the one over here. While this isn't a specific person, it is an IP, a show that I love near and dear. If you know me, I'm obsessed with Arcane. I absolutely adore the style in that show. If you can't tell by my profile picture, it's a little bit reminiscent of it. But I also really love their background painting. There's a lot of it that I really want to emulate, and it also, for some reason, just like eludes my brain. I feel like it's something I haven't quite comprehended. So this is a good opportunity for me to explore that. Did some reference hunting already, and I found this picture that I'm going to use. This is a scene from Victor's flashback in season 1, where I think he first meets Sky, and they're like in the Fisher grottos where some of the mining is happening in the lanes. I remember when I first saw it, the way the rock texture is painted and their use of color and lighting. If I'm able to incorporate any of that in my own painting, incredible. I have found maybe like 2 or 3 references I could use. I'm still juggling between them. It's a little difficult to pick because it's hard to find something that is extremely rocky and craggy, not grassy. Something that doesn't have like a huge amount of water flowing through it. I'm looking for only a little bit like the reference has. So it's a little tricky. I'm gonna make the decision by tomorrow and start painting tomorrow. The next time you see me, it'll probably be a painting montage. We'll see you then. All right, hello, we're gonna take a break from painting, catch you up on what's going on. Okay, so we have finished now most of the steps that I'm following from the course. We have done sketching, we have done block-ins, shadows, and bounce light. There's only 2 steps left following the workflow from the course that I'm trying out, and it is brush strokes and then finishing details, making sure focal points line up, you know, going over like color balance, curves, adding whatever paint over you want. Here's how it's looking so far. At the moment right now, I'm recording this. And I like it. I like it so far. I think it definitely matches the reference. I like that there's a little bit more color injected in it. That's kind of like my painting style anyway, and I'm not focusing on color right now. I'm nervous going into this next part. I think the next part is going to feel like sandpaper to my brain. It's the brush strokes. This is the part I was nervous about. Looking at my study so far versus the Arcane references that I am looking at, I think I've got a lot going. I think these next 2 steps are going to be where I make it or break it. You know what I mean? It really comes down to the brush strokes and the shapes, right? They have a lot more harder shapes on the rocks that I need to kind of inject in there. I do feel pretty good about the fundamental steps so far. I mean, sketching and block in, like, definitely happy with the proportions and how they look. Shadows and bounce light. This is kind of how I add them in, kind of not. It's a little different than my usual flow, but you know, multiply layers, lighten layers. It's not that drastically different. The next 2 steps are when things are gonna get interesting. This is a part of my workflow I don't really have a system for. I don't really know how to incorporate. I've been really playing around a lot the last year or 2 with black and white and sketches and line art, and then later transferring that to color. I haven't jumped straight into color in really quite a long time. So this is feeling a little I'm feeling a little exposed right here and just rusty, you know, not too used to this. But from what I can gather from my reference, I think this brush stroke, you know, detail section is gonna be where the magic comes together. So we're gonna see how that goes. All right. I'm also gonna say right now, you're probably gonna see a lot of trial and error. Okay, you're gonna see a lot of me trying out different brushes, a lot of like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see if this works, and then getting pretty far with it, and then being like, no, actually, I'm gonna erase it all, and I'm gonna start over. So, be gentle, be kind. Hope it turns out alright in the end. I'll see you there. done another painting. We did it. I can confirm this did feel like sandpaper to my brain, but learned a lot from the process. I'm very proud of the painting. Here is how it looks at the end. I have it right in front of me on my computer. I'm super happy with it, dude. I think I did good. Is it exactly like the Arcane style I was going for? Not necessarily, and I do recognize, especially in season 2, the Arcane style does change a little teeny bit since this is a assignment about art direction. It's kind of good to acknowledge how a show can evolve, right? But for this particular piece, is it exactly the same? Not necessarily, but I can see where from my usual art style, I nudged myself closer to this. I moved closer to what my reference image is and what I was aiming for. And sometimes with a study, that's all you can ask for. I also recognize, perhaps more importantly, how I could make this better. I was foolish to say the brush strokes was all of it. The brush strokes, yes, make a huge difference. I recognize there are way more harder shapes here on the reference. Some of that I think could have been done now in the earlier stages. I also think I could have done more with values. Values are always, man, they always get you. All in all though, that's fine. Super proud with this piece. I'm excited to move forward because the course is still young. We are only finishing lesson 2. If you're interested in this course, it is at Underpaint Academy. It is a stylization course using 2D and 3D techniques by Ulysses Verhasselt. I think next week, lesson 3 is our last 2D assignment lesson, and then we start jumping into Blender stuff, which I am super excited about. But if you're interested, please check it out. He's done a lovely job not just teaching me techniques through this course, but also kind of changing the way I view art and how to go into stylizing, which I almost feel like is a harder thing to teach, if that makes sense. Mindset stuff. You get me. Thank you so much for watching. Think about liking this video if you've made it this far, and maybe subscribing to the channel to see more art content, to see more. I do stuff around the house too if you like renovation videos. We have a nice time here. It's chill. I hope you liked hanging out. I'm glad to have you here, and I hope you're having a lovely day. Bye.